Welcome back to another episode of Success by the Book. We are super excited to be back with you this Monday morning. And today we're going to be talking about readiness, how to set yourself up for success in your business. But the first thing I wanted to do is just say that we're a month into this now. This is our fourth show. There's been some amazing tips from our three amazing guests, and we'll get to who they are in just a minute. But I just wanted to say thank you. We've seen some incredible shout outs on social media, people already showing ways that this show has impacted them, changed the way they think about their business or changed the way that they interact in their personal lives. And that's just remarkable. So if you're watching this, if you've shared this show, if you've taken something away from this, I just want to say thank you. And I want to let you know, you can either buy yourself some swag or I would love to give you some. We actually have two hats right here. And so if you would just go ahead and comment here on this live stream, tell us about either if this is your first time watching, what you hope to get out of this. If this is your second, third, fourth time watching, what you've already taken away. We would love to pick someone at random and just send you a hat just to say thank you for tuning in. So with that said, let me get to these three great gentlemen that I have here with me today who are going to be loading you down with advice on how to prepare yourself to be successful all the time in life and business. That's, of course, going to start with Coach Bill Hart, who's the national coach over at Movement Mortgage, national leadership coach. I should be clear. Welcome, Bill. We've, of course, got my own father and the founder and CEO of Mortgage Champions, Dale Vermillion. Dale, thanks for being here. And of course, we've got Coach Kyle Draper. I don't even know what to say about this guy. He started so many businesses. He's the creator, the writer, the editor of Rethink Everything. I know there's more books to come in the series. And of course, all three of these gentlemen with us today are part of the Green Book. Not the Purple Book, as I accidentally said one time.
That's
but
right.
The Green Book, which is all over social media. There's no way. If you haven't seen it, you're living under a rock. Let's just be honest. So, gentlemen, there's so much we could talk about in terms of today, but I know Dale wanted to start with a marquee verse out of Ephesians 5:15-16. So let me just pull it up on the screen. And Dad, take it away. Why are we talking about readiness here in the mortgage industry right now?
You know, we live in times where we have to be prepared and ready for the things we do. Ephesians 5:15 is always and 16 has always been one of my favorite verses to really talk through when we're in these kinds of times. It says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity." Absolutely critical baseline foundational verse, I think, for today to kind of get us thinking in the mindset of, how do we prepare ourselves and be ready in this marketplace where you've got to make sure you've got your A+ game. And I got two gentlemen that can talk all about that. So I'm going to hand it over to Bill or Kyle. And
well, I'll give you a quick observation on a way that I do that. So, I joined Movement Mortgage about 3 years ago after 20 years with Building Champions, and it was an amazing career with Building Champions. And part of the reason that I stepped into the mix at Movement was because of the anchoring in scriptures that our company is based on. And the way that manifests for me every morning is at 8:10. I probably told you the guys this before, but at 8:10 every morning, we have a Bible study with the CEO, Casey Crawford, our president, Mike Brennan, our chief legal counsel, general counsel, Scott Green, our chief pastoral officer. I mean, who doesn't have a chief pastoral officer? Stephen Phelan. And at 8:10 Eastern, which is 5:10 my time, we have a 20-minute Bible study. And I know that sounds like a ridiculously short period of time, but it's a way for us to anchor ourselves in truth, be together as brothers. You've all been a part of men's groups at some point, and for the women that are on the call, I'm sure you guys have the opportunity. I hope you're plugged into a group. But man, just that early morning, like this is where my day starts, rather than starting by watching the news or reading the news or just getting off track. It starts with being centered. And for me, that's the flag in the sand that I think Ephesians is speaking to there.
Yep. Good.
If I can kind of ask y'all a question, when I think of readiness, I think of sort of two categories of readiness. There's sort of a passive readiness, which is the constant scaling yourself up, if you will, setting your mindset so that when you're just off the cuff, right? When you're not on stage, you're ready to respond, right? And I think that there are obvious implications there for leadership, for sales, for service. And then there's active readiness, if you will, which is you have something that you're preparing for, you're coming up for, and what is the process that you engage in to be ready for that? Can you all speak to those two categories of readiness and how you've either coached others or even in your own lives, sort of worked on developing routines to be able to be passively and actively ready to succeed?
Well, yeah. I mean, first and foremost, look, we can't be ready to succeed if we don't have, first and foremost, what I call a priority mindset. And a priority mindset means that we start every day with the things that are most important, and we continue the day as the day goes on in that exact same repetitious manner. So Bill already talked about what the most important thing is, and that's starting our day right. And that's starting with scripture and prayer and making sure that we're getting ourselves in the right mindset and the right attitude. But once you've moved beyond that, you have to go to the next step of making sure that you are ready for the day. And there's three key things that I think need to happen. Number one is you have to establish what are your priorities for that day. What are the most important things you need to do? And if you're in sales, those better be sales things. They better not be things that don't make you money or help you with your customers to change their lives or do the things that are important. So you have to establish that first. You got to list out everything you want to do, put it in priority order from most important to least important, and make sure you've got that set up. Then number two, you've got to then, once you know your priorities, prepare yourself for your priorities. Do a warm up in the morning. Make sure you're spending time getting yourself acclimated to the day. So I teach this to the loan officers all the time. If you're going to be successful in sales, you got to start with sales. You can't start with other things like emails or problems or pipelines because that won't get you there. So warm up in the morning. Get an accountability partner that you can work with to encourage each other, grow with each other, and practice with each other in the morning, because you don't want to make a bad call to a live customer because that is the one that pays your bills. You want to make sure that you are doing your warm-ups in the morning to get yourself prepared. And then throughout the day, just study and learn, study and learn, study and learn. It's so important to understand that. I love the old quote. I think it was Zig Ziglar who said it. He said that you can either teach your people, train your people, and keep them and have them be successful, or not train them and they might stay anyway. And then you're in trouble. So it's important that we have the right mindset, we have the right preparation, and we have the right knowledge every single day. Those three things combined together, those are going to make for a great day every day.
It's so good.
So, go ahead, Cal.
Well, I was just, first I want to say, guys, for those watching, listening, if you have a thought, if you have a question, make sure to put it in the chat. We want to be able to have a conversation with you throughout these episodes.
Good.
Jake, I love the way you pose that question because I probably am the worst at like daily routine of those of us on this call. I can be a little bit willy-nilly and go by the seat of my pants far too often. But what you asked about passive readiness, I think the active readiness, there's a million books on that, right? The Bible being one of them. You know, Bill talks about he talked about the planner that he uses last week, right? Like, so for active readiness, like there's so much out there, but that passive readiness, like I took my dad to the home run derby Monday night, and it was a sports bucket list thing for us. And so it was so much fun. And we were pulling out of the parking lot, and this car in front of us turns out onto the busy street. And you've all been to a sporting event, a concert, like it's crazy. You're just hoping not to hit people as you're trying to maneuver your car. And this car in front of us almost hits this couple. One of the couples, they smack the back of the car, and the car pulls over, and the guy gets out, and they're about to fight. And I drive off as fast as possible so that I'm not held victim to having to like stick around and figure it out. And I thought, man, like what can be going through your mind to be in such a place that your first passive thought without doing anything is I'm going to jump out of my car and fight this person that slapped my car because I almost hit them. And so I think if you look at our country, it's the passive readiness where most people are failing because they haven't even set their mind to a place that says, you know what, there's really nobody that can take my piece from me. There's nothing somebody can say that can make me want to fight you, that can make me want to punch you in the mouth. But I feel like so many adults on the planet that we interact with, like they live their life just ready to throw hands because somebody decided to say something that they didn't like. And so I'd love to hear the wise ones of the call, like really talk about like, what does it take on a daily basis to just stay so right passively that you're not that crazy person that's like wanting to fight everybody or cuss someone out? Because we see this running rampant, in my opinion, across the industry and across our country.
So I'll jump in and just say another 30 years. That helps me.
Yeah. Me too.
Right. I just know that, you know, it happens, right? You sort of settle a little bit, you recognize what's important. But the two examples, Kyle, as you were talking, that came to my mind is these are just tactical things, you guys, and you're going to learn that about me, that, you know, these guys are much more well-versed in the Bible than I am, but I believe these are two examples anybody can relate to. Number one, I don't think I've mentioned it on this show, but one for me is I've decided in advance that when I'm in a social setting, I'll have one cocktail. I won't have two, because when I go to 2 or 3, I know that for me, I could just become more relaxed, say something maybe that I shouldn't have. So I decide ahead of time with that. The other thing I do is once a month, I go to the bank and I clean out their $2 bill supply. Why? Because they're great for tipping and people don't forget you. Right. So there's some deliberate things. Those are just silly examples, but two things that I do so that when I'm in that situation, I'm prepared. But the one that I wanted to share is from one of the Stoics, one of the Greek Stoics. Archilochus famously said, we don't rise to our level of expectations. We fall to our level of training. And what you heard Dale describing earlier is the way Dale and I grew up in the sales business. And that was, you would drill for skill, you would rehearse for situations, your supervisor would listen to you, go with you on calls, later plug in a Y connector to a headset and listen to calls being made. It's the way that I was trained at Building Champions as a coach, is we would advise the client that we would be recording the call, and then we would debrief it, right? We'd go through it afterwards. Like, so when the client said this, did you not catch that? And I just think for us in the mortgage business, we have been so busy reacting to opportunity for so many years because it was a lower interest rate environment that for many people, we just haven't sharpened those skills. So please take what you heard from Dale to heart. Reach out to his company, reach out to Dale, find somebody there that can help you train, prepare, so that you know when that objection comes up, like what's the most obvious one, right? What's your rate? Or your rate's too high. It's the most obvious one. How do you deal with that? I personally like the guy, I think I've told you guys this before, from Texas, that said to me, Kyle, he said, well, I mean, I can get you 0%. It's going to take 100% down.
Is that how we talk in Texas?
That's the Texas accent. Come on. It's one of my strengths, is accent. That was so Plano, good. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
That's so good.
So train.
I'm gonna respond to Kyle's question about passive readiness with a scripture that I think fits perfectly, and it's Proverbs 16:3. It says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans." I think that's the key. Is throughout our day, as we are dealing with, because we deal with stresses all the time, we deal with those situations every single day, probably dozens of times a day, where we get frustrated, we get mad, we get upset about things because it doesn't go our way. And you know what? That comes back into that, don't try to control what you can't control. And if you will just learn, if we will learn to just take a moment and just quickly pray, Lord, help me through this. How do I respond to this? Show me the way to handle this situation. I've learned in my life that has made all the difference. I've been a believer in open-eyed prayer my entire adult life. That everywhere I'm going and everywhere I'm walking, as I'm seeing things or thinking about things, I'm just, hey, God, help me with that one. Hey, how about that situation? Show me who I should be talking to. Show me who I should be helping. Show me how I should say those words. And I think what happens is that's going to minimize all of those problems. I loved when Kyle used the word routine. I've always had an acrostic for the word routine. It goes like this. Regular overachievers understand time is never expendable. ROUTINE. The importance of our time is critical. So we need to make sure that we understand that in a big way. Proverbs 16:9 says, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. So those two, 16:9 and 16:3, really tie to each other really, really well and help us understand if we're going to be ready, the way to be ready is don't just do it in the human element, but use the power and the strength that God can give you to have that divine wisdom that is going to help you in these things to be ready in all circumstances and situations.
I think that's great advice.
So
we talked about
on a quick,
please
a quick way to operationalize what you just heard Dale said. What you heard Dale say is what Daniel Harkavy taught me 20 years ago. And this was back in the days, Dale, you'll remember this, when coaching clients had physical files, right? Because this was the year 2000 and we didn't have robust CRMs, and at least we didn't. So I had physical files for every client, and I had them in those racks that you would stack them on your desk, and I'd have 12 coaching sessions a day, and they were lined up. And I would sit down at my desk 30 minutes before, and I would just pray over them. And it's what Daniel taught me to do in my prayer. So for those of you that are believers, you totally understand. For those of you that are new to this whole conversation, let me just tell you what I would basically pray. And it was just this simple prayer. Father, I pray that you would bring me the wisdom that I don't have, the words that are not in my brain, to impact these clients in a way that you would have them be impacted.
Love it.
And so in that way, it just, to Dale's point, it just freed me up to say, okay, I don't have to worry about, is this a great day for me? Is this like, I got supernatural advantages right now, and I just have to be a conduit. And I am telling you guys, this could be as true with you talking to a borrower or a referral partner as it was with me with a coaching client. Is I had moments where I was like, dude, that was good. That clearly wasn't me. That I don't own that. Like, awesome. I was just a conduit. So praying into those moments ahead of time, Kyle, that's kind of what you're talking about. And Dale, the very specific example you gave, that's the way that I've always learned to do it in praying. And now I just do it over my laptop because that's where all the clients live. They live in my laptop now. So, but yeah, that prep, you guys, turn it over to God. Makes life so much easier.
Isn't it interesting how we can prep and prep and prep and prep? You know, when I speak all over the place, I pour so much time and energy to every detail of that talk. And yet I still stand off stage before I'm introduced and I stop and just say, Lord, if there is anything in me that is not of you, please remove it. If there is a word in my voice box that is not of you, please remove it. Give me what you have for these people. Prepare their hearts to receive it. And I'm typically going to jump up there and talk about marketing. Yet I'm still in all of that prep. Like, I have so much confidence in my ability. Yet I still take time to just reverently remind myself that it is not about me. And that, Lord, this is about you. And I think sometimes, like, that, when I forget to do that, when I overthink it or get distracted, like, those are the worst talks I give. And it didn't have anything to do with my preparedness. It had everything to do, in my opinion, with staying in the way instead of inviting the Lord to come in and do what I know that only he can.
Good.
That's super good. Well, let me ask you this then, Kyle, because I think that brings up a good point. There's only so much we can do in terms of self-regulation. Like, we can try our very best to remember to sort of settle in those moments and, leave it up to the big guy, right?
Sure.
But there are gonna be those moments where we fail to do so. We get in a rush, we get short-sighted, whatever it is.
Good.
What role can others play in our lives in helping us maintain that mindset of readiness, whether that's a manager, a colleague, a friend, a family member, you name it? What does that look like?
You know, because I have a lot of other friends that speak, one of the things that I'll try to do is when I know somebody has a talk coming up, I'll just say a quick prayer for them and then text them and just say, hey, brother, I know you're about to take the stage, man. I'm praying for you. I know it's going to be incredible. Because I don't know if that person necessarily prays before they go on stage. And so instead of being a jerk that's like, you don't pray before you go out on stage, what's wrong with you? By just simply praying for them and then sending them that message, it may cause one of them to go, oh, I need to do that.
Yep.
And so that's a simple way that I've done it.
So good, dude.
Jake, I love that question that you asked. And let me give another perspective on that. King Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived, in Proverbs 27:17 said this is iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. To me, that has always been a key scripture when it comes to success, because in and of ourselves, okay, here's the problem. And for the whole audience, you can probably relate with me on this, okay? Maybe you have the same dreaded disease that I have called excusitis. Anybody with me on that one right there? I can make excuses for all my mistakes, for all of my shortcomings, for all the things that go wrong in my life. I can do that all day long, okay? Unless and until I have accountability. It all comes back to having the right accountabilities. So we should all be in accountability partnerships in all aspects of our lives, in our work life, in our spiritual life, in our marriage. Sorry, my dogs are having fun down there. We should have all of those things should be in place if we're really going to succeed the way that we want to.
Let me just show that verse again on screen that Dale quoted. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Proverbs 27:17.
Well, and can I add into this that, I've heard a lot of pastors use this verse really in a way that it wasn't intended, with a lot of passivity, and just really talk about friendships and we're just brothers and we love each other. But when you look up the original language, this was referring to when two swords go into battle. Right. And so a true clashing of iron, those swords come out of battle stronger and sharper than they went into battle. And so as we talk about accountability, I worked for a pastor that what he called accountability, he really just meant yes men. And so he just wanted people around him that told him how great he was, how awesome his ideas were, that said yes to every idea that he ever had. When we really need accountability from people that are going to call us on our crap and go, dude, that's not the right way to do that. I wouldn't have handled it that way. You're actually in the wrong, bro. The way you talk to your wife, you shouldn't have talked to her. But most people then go, man, I don't know that we're great accountability partners because you're a little bit too harsh. You're a little bit too opinionated. And so be careful as you're working this out and doing what Dale just said, that you don't just find people that are completely aligned with you. Like I've loved as I've gotten older, having friends with people that believe politically different than me, because I want to understand why everyone thinks the way they think. And I don't want to just go, oh, you're that way. Well, then I don't know that I have room for you. And so this is really important. Like there will be quarrels, there will be fighting, and that can be done healthily and in a way that builds both of us up and we both come out of it better than we went in.
So good.
So good. Well, I want to get Bill into this conversation. We've kind of talked about human accountability, right? We started with ourselves. What can we do in our own lives to structure ourselves? We've talked about ways that we can involve other people and that we can make accountability to others, which is super important. And you're welcome to comment on any of those. But I also want to ask the question, like, what can we do in terms of like technology, for example? Like, what are tools maybe that you're recommending as a coach every day to be able to keep people on track and in the right mindset? I think that'd be really helpful for people watching.
Yeah, well, my personal favorite I've probably talked about before. So I am a full focus planner guy. I like Mike Hyatt's planner, but I don't have a day that goes by that I'm not telling people they should be using the Win by Noon planner. It's the best thing I've seen as a coach in the mortgage industry. Todd Bookspan created this, I don't know, 8 years ago, something like that. And every single day is structured for you as an originator. It's not a generic planner. It's very specific about TBD calls, referral partner calls. It's exactly what everybody would need to structure their days. The beauty of that is if you'll commit to that, and you don't have to use the whole thing, you don't have to do the business planning, but if you'll use that tool every single day, it's a tactile pen to paper, open on my desk. I cannot ignore what's happening here. Are you going to have days where things blow up? The appraisal didn't come in and, stuff has gone sideways and the borrower just went out and bought a new SUV that they know you're going to be super excited to hear about. Does that kind of stuff happen? Yes. But will you get right back on track with this? Absolutely. It's the single best tool. I'm a huge fan of, HomeBot and what is it? What's the new one, Dale? Home IQ.
Home IQ. Yeah, actually, Mitch Peak is on with us right now.
Big fan. I'm a big
fan. If you have questions, ask Mitch.
Mortgage Coach. I mean, I like MBS Highway. The tools are out there, but the number one tool for me for accountability is the Win by Noon planner. And by the way, you guys, it's $20 a month. Like, it's $20 a month. And I don't care if you use. I'm system agnostic, but I think this is a tool that will help people. So that's my number one recommendation.
Bill, it's never ceased to amaze me in 30 years of training and coaching millions of loan officers across the country, how many of them ask this question: show me your planner, show me your scheduler for today. And they go, I don't use one. And I literally look at them and go, how do you ever plan to succeed in life the way you want to? Yeah. How can you ever expect to do the results you want to do if you don't even lay those things down and put them pen to paper every day? Establish your priorities, establish your time frames, build a schedule. You can't balance your life if you don't do it. That's for sure. Yeah. You can't succeed in your business the way you want to do it. That's for sure. So what you're doing is you're living a reactive life instead of a proactive life. And that's not the symbol of readiness that we're talking about today. That's absolutely critical. And by the way, I've got to say this. You notice my Rhino cup, my dear wife Laurel bought for me. There's something behind this. So I read a book that I want to recommend to everybody to read from one of my favorite authors, Scott Alexander, called Rhinoceros Success. When I was 20 years old, it was a life changer. And he talks like crazy in there about this whole topic of readiness and how to live life like a rhino, how to charge forward, but how to do it with a plan. Great recommendation for people to check out. You'll love it. It's a 35-minute read on a plane. It's big letters, which is good for a guy like me, and simple words. So, but you're going to love it.
Nice.
That's awesome. Great recommendation. Well, gentlemen, we're at that time. We've had some great comments during today's show. Candace pointed out that coping skills are not being taught, so people just react and not always in a positive way. To Kyle's point, I think that's so true. And so talking about how we can be passively ready to combat against that in our own lives is so powerful. Angela chimed in saying accountability is so important. Obviously, we agree. And then, of course, Ava asked a great question. She wanted to know the name of the planner again. And so, Coach, if it's all right, I'm just going to say it's the Win by Noon by Todd Bookspan, or another great planner would be the Full Focus Planner by Michael Hyatt. So two great resources, and we can link to those in the comments as well if anyone wants to check those out. Any final parting thoughts before we say goodbye today and plan to see everyone next Monday?
It's a great call. It's the best part of my week. I love you guys, and it's so fun. So fun. And throw the dog some raw meat, would you? Come on.
Well, we'll be sure to do that. Y'all, we will catch you all next week, live as always at 8 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. It's so great to be with you again. Thank you for being here with us, and we will talk to you soon. Gentlemen, we'll see you next week.
See you guys.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.